Welcome to the Fancy Thinker. I'm Jerry Quartermatch, and today we're going to be doing a short review of Olaf Stapledon's Last and First Men, a story of the near and far future. Um, Quote from here: "The romance of the future may seem to be an indulgence in ungoverned speculation for the sake of the marvelous." Um, Quite a pithy quote there from Mr. Stapledon, and it kind of took me a long time to get around to reviewing this book because of a couple of factors. First, there was some work stuff that got in the way and curtailed my time for reading, writing, and filming stuff, reviews. And second, this book just required some time to sink in. um, it was This book was written during a different age. Science fiction was just getting into the swing of things and was still very young genre. The possibilities were open and endless, as was the that feeling of possibility during the period immediately following the Great War, what we now know as World War One. The biases of a rather well-to-do British gentleman are quite apparent in this narrative, and is something one should definitely take into account before reading. Much of the book is male focused and Eurocentric, so be warned about that part of it. Putting all that aside, um, the story itself was quite enjoyable personally. Stapleton has a far-reaching scope, who and his vision is truly astonishing once you get right down to it. Written in This is written in 1930, just as that's when it came out. So he begins with this metafictional context that a person writing this account thinks he is merely contriving a work of fiction, but is actually being fed information from the very distant future by one of the last men. The author uses this conceit as a means of explanation as to why there is such like a focus on the current age for like a third of the book, rather than it might be just more interesting to us because we are of this age. That is, we are the first men. So there are some wild claims right off the bat that really diverge from our actual history. For instance, like the peace which followed the European War is one of the most significant moments of ancient history. Uh, Even today, we don't feel that way. The bias about World War One and its after effects was a hangover of hope that followed the Great War in the Roaring Twenties, especially among Western Europe and the United States. And we now know, of course, the significance of this period is quite overhyped, um, or it was. But he does predict some stuff. He predicts the rise of Russia, and he predicts the European Union, among some other things. He puts in his fear of the use of gas as a weapon, which is kind of a holdover from his time in World War One, and he mentions the use of it in a couple of future wars to come in this invented history. He also somewhat accurately predicts the rise of religious movements in politics that don't actually reflect the will of the people, and the rise of tribalism as a political force over more global concerns, both very relevant today. So that was, pretty cool stuff. Once Stapleton's done with his rather convoluted and chaotic history of the first men, he methodically goes through the next 16 iterations of mankind until he gets to the 18th and final race of man, the last men. Uh, these different phases of men are kind of just ticked off one by one as he imagines like some strange interpretations of how mankind evolved into different species over millions and millions of years, like up to a billion, I think. Uh, it's like I said, the scope is like incredible. It's amazing. Um, and so the book is written like a history book, parsing out events, culture, society, religion, and other aspects of humanity in different sections, like he is giving instruction. So, for me, as someone who enjoys the occasional history book, that didn't bother me one bit. I kind of liked it, and but you need to be a heads up. You need to have a heads up going into this book. The style of prose is very much reminded me of an actual history books that I've read from the early 20th century. Stuff like the History of the United States by Adams and Trent from 1905, and Mark Bloch's Feudal Society series, which was written in the middle 30s, and most significant of all to me was this book here, The Education of Henry Adams. It's just that style of stuff of writing historical things, even though this was like a biography, but and it was stuff like the English themselves hardly conceived that their mind was either economical, sharp, or direct. Were phrasing like that, sentences like that. Um, it seems that Stapledon's education led him down this road to imitate this kind of high-handed, stuffy, snobbish literature. Um, and But it reads well in that manner, and so it was amusing to me. And as much as he imitates this style, he is also poking fun at it. If you know what you're reading, and sometimes his wit shows through with some biting social commentary and some self-deprecation, so which is refreshing. Um, there are errors in his future, um, in the book that may seem a bit silly to us today, but then again, how silly are we going to look to the people that exist millions of years from now? So, if you can take all that in, and you can, and you want to delve into you know, the history of science fiction, then this book may be for you. All right, that's it for today. As always, be good to each other, and thanks.